Welcome back to the S3 podcast. Today we have a very special guest. His name is Caleb, but you very well might know him as Gingium. He is a automotive YouTuber, and today we're going to talk about that, YouTube things. All right, so Caleb, what's your backstory? You come from video games, right?
Yeah. So I started making YouTube videos for fun in high school, and I was doing like Skyrim videos and like racing videos, essentially. And then I wanted to do it more seriously. I wanted to turn it into a profession. I wanted to do it instead of going to college and crap. So I decided I needed to have like a more specific thing that I made videos on. Like you can't just make videos on whatever you want to make videos on, because then you won't draw a certain audience.
Right.
So then I chose car racing videos, because there weren't very many car racing YouTubers back when I started a couple of years ago. So I did that for like a year, and that's how I started my channel. Like I got to 100,000 subscribers doing that, and then I kind of got bored of doing it.
No big deal.
In video games.
So, like, what's the timeline? Like, when did you start your YouTube channel?
The first video I made was in 2013.
Okay.
But I started like regularly in 2015.
And how old are you? Or how old were you then and now?
I'm 22 now. I was
Okay.
in
so
high
you were
school.
young, dude.
Yeah. I literally freshman year of high school, I came home from high school and I started making YouTube videos. I just did it for fun for most of the time.
Holy cow. Did you ever think it would like turn into something? Like from the beginning, were you like, I'm going to see if I can turn this into something, or were you just killing time as a teenager?
I really wanted it to turn into something, but I knew like at that time I couldn't, I still had fun doing it. Like I did it for fun to take up free time. Because if you're doing it just to get that end goal, like I had to do it for 3 years. It took me 3 years to reach 500 subscribers.
Okay.
So like, obviously if you're just trying to get a bunch of money and stuff from YouTube,
Yeah, there's other ways.
It's really time consuming to get up to there.
Yeah. That's crazy, man. That's crazy. That stuff fascinates me just because we are so, young to YouTube and like, I mean, I know, Hunter's been on it, because he's in his early 20s. But me, like, I was kind of like, up until like 2 years ago, the only thing I watched on YouTube was like my reggae videos. You know what I mean? Like, I used it literally as MTV just to date myself. Like, that's what I was like, damn it, can't find any videos. I'm going to go on YouTube and watch some of these videos and get inspired. And then, yeah, just in the, I mean, we've only been doing it like, a year and a half, like trying seriously, But yeah, I don't know, man. It always fascinates me just the way people are like, were you always comfortable on camera like that? Like even as an awkward teenager? Because like if you would have taken ninth grade me and tried to put a camera on me, dude, like
same.
I would not have been good.
So for the first while, I was actually never on camera. Like I just did a voice recording.
Really?
Which helped. Yeah. I never showed my face for the first couple of years. And then when I started to, it was definitely weird and awkward. It wasn't too bad doing it by yourself, but if anyone was there watching me while I recorded, I could not do that. That was weird. I can't do that to this day. Like if I'm out in public, I cannot film. It's just awkward.
Yeah.
And so did you just screen cap? You just screen cap some on PC?
Yeah, I used like Elgato screen cap because I was playing on the Xbox, and then I used Audacity on my mic. Actually, this is the same mic and the same webcam I bought a couple of years ago just for that. So
okay,
that's cool. So, at what point did you realize, like, hey, I can make something out of this?
That's a good question. I don't know if there was ever really like a turning point. I was really lucky because I started early enough where by the time I was to the point where I needed to like rely on it or like wanted to use it as a business, I'd already been doing it for 4 years kind of thing. Right. But yeah, I mean, essentially what happened is, I guess when I got out of high school, I started going to college, and I went to college for like a year. And And then I was like doing college while also making YouTube videos. And I was doing YouTube videos pretty regularly, like, 3 a week. And I was getting money from YouTube and stuff. And I realized, why am I going to college to do something that I want to do less than what I'm doing right now? So I just dropped out of college and kind of went from there.
Yeah.
It's weird, man.
Go
ahead, Hunter.
I guess it was kind of the same situation with me for S3 because, I was in school full time while also interning with S3, and S3 would be like, because there's been multiple situations where Wooly will call me at like Wednesday and he'll be like, Friday, we have to go to California. And I'm like, what, really? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, well, I have an exam on Friday. And he's like, well, here's your ticket. Here's your plane ticket.
Already bought.
Yeah, we already have your plane ticket.
Were you working at Advance for most of that time too?
Actually, no. When I started with S3, this was before Advanced. I was working for a construction company in downtown Birmingham. So I would
just picture Hunter in like bright orange vest with some jeans.
Hard hats.
Yeah. Steel toe boots, whole 9 yards. That sucked. Definitely my darkest time. But no, I would get up. I would go, to work at 6:30 in the morning. And then I would get off at about 11, go do classes, and then come home and do, whatever I could for S3. But I finally came to the realization that, I was at school to study advertising, but I was already doing with S3 what I was going to school to do. So why not invest more time into pursuing S3 versus, sticking full-time in school, doing something that might not take me anywhere, I
will say in our field, I'm seeing a lot more employers look at experience in substitute of years in college. So for my position, they would look at, 4 years in college or like a bachelor's degree or so many years of experience. And if you can do that experience and gain a network that's going to get you in the right places, like some of these people are ahead of it by the time these other people graduate college,
It's like, it's super weird for me being like, whatever, a generation above at least, Hunter and Caleb, like I was going to college. There was like no real question about like, oh, should I go or should I not go? And I went to a big party school. I went to University of Georgia, it's huge. And I ended up spending a good 6 years there to get a 4-year degree, because I was partying and I never wanted to leave. I was like Van Wilder. Like, I was like, why would anybody want to leave this,
Yeah.
But the reality is, like, I kind of screwed away basically my late teens through mid 20s almost, just because I was going to school. And it's just so weird to see how it's kind of changed in a generation, because now with the internet and social media and YouTube and all these platforms to create your own brand, media channel, whatever you want to do, like I'm starting to wonder, like, is college worth it? I mean, like you two got totally a jump on where I would have been. You're in your early 20s and like living the damn thing. When I was in my early 20s, I was still partying 5 nights a week and going to class, and that was life. And we loved cars, but it was a hobby. That was it. It was a hobby and a credit card debt, and that was it. Now, I mean, the flip side of that coin is the hobby and the credit card debt and the good times and all that led to me getting so, encompassed in it that I ended up, with the magazine. But I don't know, man. I mean, I was 25 by the time I got a job with the magazine. So I was like, 3 years older than y'all. Like, y'all are already like way ahead of where I would have been, So it's kind of it's crazy. I mean, I've got a 6-year-old little girl, and I wonder that same thing for her all the time. She's all about the YouTube. She loves watching. It's funny because she likes watching the video game people and FGTV and FV and whatever that dude's name is. He's freaking hilarious. But like, these guys are more famous than celebrities. Like, they really are. If you look at the numbers, you know. And I just wonder, you know, do I push the same path where you're like, you need to get an education, you need to go to college because you need something to fall back on, but do you? I mean, you know, she could be like well on her career path by 20, or she could be going to sorority parties getting wasted. And I don't like the sound of that either. So I don't know, man. It's just weird. Like, for people that might be watching, like, it's definitely food for thought. You know, if you're younger, do you need college like maybe I did? Like with the magazine, I'm convinced that having the degree, doesn't matter what it was in psychology. Like, and I literally had a psychology professor just say, if you like psychology, just get your damn piece of paper and get out of here and you'll go get a job. And that's the way it's going to be, man. It's going to work out, you know? And like, and so I think for my age group, that degree helped because in the interview process, it set me apart, I guess, a little bit. Yeah. But for y'all, I just don't, you know, I mean, I can't speak for you, Caleb, but I know that Hunter's getting experience that you just can't, you know, college can't replicate that. Like, he's living it.
Yeah, 100%.
So,
yeah, I'm definitely glad I didn't go to college, but, well, yeah, glad I didn't go to college. Definitely could not have done a lot of the stuff that I've done now if I went, if I continued going to college.
Not to discourage anybody.
Definitely don't put all your apples in whatever
the YouTube basket.
Yeah. Don't rely on that kind of stuff. But
I mean, because Jesse has a college degree, a very recent college degree. Wooly is has a psychology degree. A lot of people don't know that. But yeah,
you can see it in the magazine.
That's how it gets it in your head, man.
All right, I got a question, Caleb. Do you think you could do it again if you were starting in 2020? Do you think that? I mean, YouTube right now is saturated, you know, and you were in at the right time.
Yeah, 100% no, definitely not.
Okay,
I got in honestly at the latest I think possible.
Yeah,
because there's so many people trying to make YouTube channels and doing all that crap. It's just hard to get your name out there because there's so many people doing it. And back, even though it was only 5 years ago, it was still a much smaller thing back then. Yeah, for sure.
I remember I was valeting. Well, I was going to say I was valeting, and there was a guy that worked the door of the club where I valeted, and he was like, "You know what you need to do with that magazine, man? You need to get on YouTube." And I was like, "Nah, man, I don't want to mess with that." He was right. Should have done that back in 2013. But
Caleb, so I'm curious. You said you started off doing this as kind of fun. At what point did you decide to start putting strategy behind it, to where, you know, it went away from just, I'm just going to come home, do something fun, to like actually put like strategy behind it?
I'm not sure if I've ever put strategy behind it. It's still, I just do it for fun. It just happens to fun, you know, be my job. Yeah. But I think once I quit college, I was like, all right, I need to really take this seriously.
Yeah, I have to make this
now.
work.
I'm way behind. I need to go back to college, and like, what do I do now? So
so let's follow the timeline. So you start out doing video games, then you're like, okay, I need to set myself apart, so I'm going to start doing racing video games. Yeah. Where do physical cars come into the picture?
So while I was doing the racing video game videos, I was saving up to get my first car, which is the Miata I have. So I finally got that, and I was so happy. And I started making Miata Mondays. So every Monday, I would make a video doing something with that car. And, you know, that kept going. Can you guys hear that in the background?
No.
Okay.
Is it a cat?
One. Yeah, the cat's trying to get in. Tearing up the carpet.
I can tell by the way you were looking at him, like, what are you doing?
Yeah, it's so annoying. But as if you guys can't hear it, then that's good.
No, you're good.
So where was I? So I'm making the Miata Monday videos, and once I hit 100,000 subscribers, I got a Subaru wagon, and then I started doing it like 2 times a week. Then it was like 3 times a week, and then I eventually made a video like, hey, no more video game stuff. So
okay.
Random question, like, at what point have you ever had a job other than this? Like, did you have a, whatever, advanced auto parts type job? Or
I worked at Culver's for a year.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. So like by 100,000, isn't that like a little food place, right?
Yeah, it's a pretty big
store.
chain up here, but yeah.
Yeah. So like by 100,000, was that your full-time job?
Yeah. So I was working Culver's in high school, and I was making videos at that time. I remember talking to like my Culver's managers. I didn't tell anyone I made YouTube videos because I thought it was kind of embarrassing. But then one of my friends worked with me at Culver's, and he told my manager, and then everyone started making fun of me. So that happened. But then I quit Culver's because I was doing track. Yeah, that's what it was. Quit Culver's to do track in high school. And then when I dropped out, or when I finished high school, I was living with my mom. I didn't have any bills, so I didn't really need a job. So YouTube was just kind of fun. But yeah.
That's cool.
Cool.
So
then,
go ahead. I mean, I got a question, but I don't know if you had like a plan. So go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
What? So, all right. Yeah. How did from video game teenager to like a dude that can actually wrench on his own cars? Like, how the hell did that happen? Like, you're basically like, you do everything on these cars, right? Like,
yeah, that's the one thing I'm really happy about. It was a very slow process. When I first started making the Miata Monday videos, I remember very, very distinctly, there was one video I made. I got so frustrated because I tried to install LED lights in my footwells on the Miata, and I could not figure out how to do wiring. So I didn't research anything. So I was like, oh, you put these two wires together. I hot glued all the wires together, and just kind of like, it was so sketch. And then like, I didn't know how to ground things properly, so I grounded it to a painted surface. So I flipped the switch to turn the lights on, and they're kind of like flickering and like kind of barely working. And I was like, what's going on? So I remember that really vividly, because that was like, I didn't know anything back then. And I slowly kind of did more and more stuff and got more confidence. And I had a bunch of people helping. So like when I went to install the turbo kit on the Miata, I had two guys who had turboed their Miatas come over and help me. When I did coilovers, one of my friends that I met on iFunny actually came over and helped me install the coilovers. And I kind of just watched them and what they did and learned that. And I watched a bunch of YouTube videos on how to do stuff. Greg, the Car Passion channel, he makes like Miata tutorial videos. I learned a bunch from him. And then I got, one of the big turning points was I met Mike, who owns a fabrication shop in this area. Like, he builds race cars and stuff. So I actually ended up getting, my first shop was right next to his shop. So he was right there, and whenever I needed help, I would go over there and he would kind of teach me how to do it and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Heck yeah. So you just started teaching yourself everything that you needed to learn to do what you wanted to do.
Yeah, pretty much. I had something I wanted to install or make, or I was like, I got to do it. So didn't have the money to pay a shop, hundreds of thousands of dollars to have to do it. So.
Or use part of the money to buy the tools rather than, and learn to do it yourself. That's awesome, man. Like, I respect that a lot, especially at 22. At 22, we were jacking up cars in the parking lot of our college apartment to try and lower it at 1 a.m. because we couldn't wait. And we had just gotten back from downtown or something. Like, it's insane, dude. Like, I mean, just the discipline to take it that far is pretty respectable, dude.
I respect that.
Yeah.
I feel like everything that I know about cars, it's because somehow that piece broke on my Corolla and I figured out how to fix it. So my knowledge is only as much as.
And I think a lot of time people, discredit a lot of the YouTubers or whatever. Like, it's just like, oh yeah, just a YouTuber, and it's like, dude, like he's doing it the same way a lot of us are doing it, and I don't know, man. I think that's pretty cool. Like, I didn't really realize that when I first met you, like through Hunter, until it was later on when we were hanging out. I was like, dude, that's awesome. Like, I just think it's cooler. It's not always about like the prettiest, most perfect car. I like it when people put their own heart and soul. And dude, even mistakes and learning curves that you see in cars, you know what I mean? Like, I had an old S12 Nissan. I got hooked on drifting in 2005 or whatever and bought the cheapest car I could find, the fastest. And you could watch the welds. Like, I tried to like stitch weld the car. You could see where I got better and better and better throughout the car. But I mean, that's all part of it, man.
Yeah. Even like, I know my truck, which I built last year this time, that was like the first time I ever welded. I welded like the front suspension. And like, I look back at that now and I'm like, oof, yikes, that's sketchy.
Yeah, well.
So yeah, always learning, always, yeah.
I think whatever you build that way, you appreciate a whole lot more when you're going with it, as opposed to just like sending it off.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that's the thing I'm most happy about, is actually being able to do stuff myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see a lot of similarities between Caleb's come up in YouTube and Bully's come up having purchased S3. I mean, it's different, but I see a lot of the same in a bunch of different ways, because the passion and the effort is just as much there from both sides. Yeah. So it's really cool seeing, the comparisons of the two different, I guess, generations.
Yeah.
I mean,
same journey, different platform.
It was the same thing like with the magazine. Like, I couldn't believe I got hired. 6 weeks later, I got laid off because they were selling the whole magazine title off to some company in California. I talked them into not doing that and selling it to me and the designer, which we didn't even have the money. Like, we cashed in everything we owned to try and buy this thing. And it was the same thing. It was like, oh crap, I'm all in now.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Like, we got to make this thing work, And I mean, even to this day, people are like, holy crap, you're one of the last mags standing. Like, how do you do it? And I'm like, I don't want to get a job. Like,
last mag on earth, yeah.
Yeah, dude. I mean, it's not, we're not superior talent than anybody else. We just don't quit. Yeah. Because if I quit, that means I have to cut my hair and I have to go make a resume.
I've mentioned that before many times with, like, if you and 10 other people started the same exact passion, 10 years ago, it's not the person who knows the most or who's the most talented. The person who wins is the one who doesn't quit.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. Yep. And I think, I don't know, like all the California elite magazines and stuff would all disagree with me, but I don't think this culture is about perfection. You know what I mean? Like, you can dude, honestly, we can find perfection anywhere now in the car world. Like, I think it's about heart and just true character. And I mean, that's what I like about the car scene, is I like to get to know the dudes behind it. I'm not judging what the hell wheels you got or how many they made in 1997 of that offset. I don't care. Like, I mean, if it's great, like, I don't hate it, you know what I mean? Like, that's cool, but like, I'm more interested in kind of the story behind it. I don't know.
I can appreciate it all, but as far as perfection goes, like, machines can do perfection. 50, 100 years from now, when there's nothing but robots or whatever, they're all going to make perfection, and we're going to be able to see that anywhere. But like, having the heart and story and a little dents and scratches, I think that's more of a story than anything else.
I'm with you.
Sure.
I definitely agree.
All right. So for those who don't already know or are not familiar with you, what do you currently own? What's the cars in your fleet?
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Okay. So there's my neighbor with his pop and crackle tune going down the street every night at 9
o'clock.
What
is it? Focus?
What was that?
Is it a Focus?
It's a Mini Cooper.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so I have a school bus, a short bus, which is my tow vehicle, which tows all the other cars to events. It's just 06, short bus that we converted into an RV. Then I have just a normal Miata that's got a turbo kit and some bolt-on mods. That was my first car, the Miata Monday car. Very special to me. Then we got the drift truck, which is a 1991 Mazda B2200 that I put a 1UZ in, Nissan transmission, Ford axle, custom suspension, and I drift it. And then we have the Rally Miata, which started out as a really cheap $500 lift kit, go off crazy off-road stuff, and now it's got a all-drive drivetrain from a Subaru, an EJ20 that's built and makes 360 wheel horsepower, and it's crazy fast and crazy. Yeah.
Listen, I just saw the video of you like just give it a couple ride-alongs. I love seeing everybody else's video. Another thing I noticed, your face when you're getting ready to ship and your hand has this like, little twitch. Yes.
Notice that. Until I watched that video, I see all these people commenting, like, what are they commenting about? And I'm like, literally like,
yeah. I'm expecting
like,
the camera
what?
like zoom into your eyes.
yeah, it's there. But I don't know. I don't really notice I do that, but it's just because I'm enjoying it. So.
I think everybody's got their little thing.
That's true.
I think if everybody recorded themselves, they'd find their little thing. Yeah, that thing's rowdy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm not used to super fast cars.
Yeah.
So even after owning it for a week, like I drive it now, I'm like, okay, it's kind of fast. But the first time I drove that, I was like, whoa, this is scary. So.
Yeah, I'm the same way with my Focus, because my Focus, I should be at around 360 wheel. And the first time I got on it, I was like, this is stupid. I was actually on FaceTime with Jesse, and he was on like the clip in my car, and I was like, okay, I'm about to do like the first full boost pull. And Jesse's like, let's do this.
Yes.
You're good. But that was sick. So what I want to do is take it back to the drift truck. So for those who don't know, I am a big YouTube guy, right? So I started out in high school watching YouTubers. When I was a senior, or maybe I had just graduated high school, I ended up buying a Miata. And one of my buddies go, hey, you should check out this Gingium dude. And I was like, what is a Gingium? And he said, it's this dude. He's got this blue Miata. It's turbo. It's really cool. Maybe you can get some inspiration off of it. So I said, okay. So I started watching his videos. So, I think I came into you after you had the WRX hatch or wagon or whatever it was. And you had the RX-7. You were planning to do the engine swap on the RX-7 that you had.
Yeah.
So I started watching him, trying to get
flashbacks.
some inspiration. Trying to get some inspiration for my Miata. Fast forward, he gets the drift truck. I had a friend give me a totaled LS400. LS400s have the VVTi 1UZ. And I pulled that engine out and was going to swap it into my Miata. I was such an idiot at the time that as soon as I pulled it out, I completely disassembled the engine, didn't label anything, and had absolutely no clue how to put it back together.
Yeah, on a dual overhead cam V8 with like a bajillion parts.
Yeah, it was bad. I'm very embarrassed to admit that I did that, but I did. So Caleb, he announces that he has this truck, and I think you made like a tweet looking for a 1UZ or something. So I hit him up on Twitter, and I was like, hey, dude, like, there's not a lot here, but, I've been looking for an excuse to come to Chicago, and I have this. So if you want it, I'll bring it to you. And Caleb was like, sure, cool. So, sure enough, I load up the 8 million disassembled parts from this engine into the bed of a pickup, and I take off to Chicago, and, that's where being him met. And I think, did you ever use any of I think you used the wiring harness, right? That truck has the wiring harness.
So I don't think anything on the truck right now has parts from your engine. But the truck would not be where it is if it did not have any of that stuff. That was very vital to what I did.
That's very polite. You're like, no, you brought me a whole bunch of buckets of crap.
Yeah, it was really usable. It was all rusty by the time I got it. But it was great because I had a free engine that I was able to mock up. I built all the mounts, did everything, made sure it was all going to work before buying the $1,000 engine. And the wiring harness we didn't use, like it's a custom wiring harness, but the guy who made the harness used the harness that you had to label everything and figure it all out. So definitely useful.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right. So there's some history there with S3 and the drift truck, just a little bit.
We
but-
inspire.
yeah. So how's that truck doing? You have any drifting plans for?
COVID has unfortunately shut down every event in the next couple months here, but the truck itself is awesome. Yeah, I spent the last couple of weeks getting it dialed in. It's like I had finished it, and there was a bunch of stuff, especially when you're doing like a big project where you touch everything. At least when I'm trying to build it as fast as I can for YouTube, I don't necessarily get to all the small details that I want to, because it would just take way too much time and people would get bored. So when I finished it a couple months ago, or it was last year, more like it, there was a lot of stuff that needed to be improved. So I finally took the time and kind of did all the small things that now I'm daily driving it. So it's awesome.
Hell yeah.
Oh, really?
Where did you grab the current 1UZ from?
I just bought it from a local engine importer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it a JDM engine?
Yeah, it's out of a Toyota Aristo, which is essentially a GS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think.
Okay, that's cool. I didn't know it was JDM.
And the thing was, when they sent it to the wiring, when I sent it to get wired up, they looked at the harness and they're like, "Wait a second." They had a USDM harness labels, but they didn't have anything for the JDM harness. So they were so confused, which is why your harness came in.
I've made that mistake with putting in JDM parts in my Corolla. I did the wiring, and I based the wiring off of the JDM diagram. And so I realized mirror 1 or mirror 2 or whatever 1 and 2 was based on driver side, and I backwards put the entire thing. So driver side is actually on my passenger side. It was just 13 hours trying to do that wiring and have not touched it since like 2009. Nope, not doing it. Yeah.
That's
wiring
to deal with.
Yeah.
Well,
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, you mentioned COVID. It's freaking nuts, isn't it? Like, what was it? Like 2.5 months ago, we were chilling in Atlanta, drinking beer at some brewery, talking about how you need to come back for Import Alliance in a couple weeks.
Which I wouldn't have made it back for Import Alliance. So I guess that's one good thing. But it sucks. There's nothing going on.
Do we know if Import Alliance is the rescheduled event is still happening?
I mean, it is until it isn't. Yeah. Nothing's for sure, but it's scheduled. So
it's scheduled for July, June,
I think.
Yeah, rescheduled for July 11th and 12th.
Whatever that weekend is, Yeah, I've got 10th in my head because that's when we would need to set up. But yeah, I mean, all this stuff. I mean, Formula D's the weekend before that on the 4th, and who knows? We'll see what happens.
Yeah, it might happen. It's a couple months out,
Yeah.
I mean, everything's just now starting to open back up. As long as we don't have any stupid, second wave like they keep talking about.
Yeah.
Might happen. I sure hope it does. I've been seeing a lot of tracks opening up lately, especially down south. Florida seems to just not care.
Yeah, I'm so jealous of all the people in Florida.
Yeah, I know,
I just left Florida.
Like I saw, what's his name? Matt Man or whatever, the dude who got that engine off. He was like drag racing yesterday.
Yeah.
And they were all like running around wrenching on drag cars like nothing has happened the past 2.5 months.
Not fair.
Yeah, I mean, but I guess if it's spectatorless, it's kind of okay. Right? I mean, that seems to be, at least down south, what a lot of people are doing. The problem is I was talking to some people that work at a track, and they were like, the problem is, like, even though to, like, try and socially stay distant and all that, like, when you're at the track, all that crap goes out the window. You got the adrenaline going, and there's other things going on, and it's just not human nature to stay apart when you're excited and everything's excitable and stuff like that, so... I don't know. Whatever, man. Whatever.
Oh, cool. Well, if Import Alliance happens, we'll be there. Caleb was invited for the last Import Alliance.
I will be there whenever it happens.
So it looks like we'll be having the all-wheel drive Rally Miata in the S3 booth, hopefully.
Yeah.
So that's exciting. So let's talk about the bus a little bit more. You have been through like 12 iterations of that thing, right?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
So did you set out to buy the bus, or did the bus find you?
No, I set out to find the bus. Yeah.
Okay.
That was that's something I've always wanted to do, is have like a bus and turn it into an RV. It's like a miniature version of that, but
Yeah,
kind of the same.
that's cool.
But yeah. So I guess when I first got it, it was literally a school bus, had all this, the seats in it and benches and stuff. So we tore everything out. Then we made kind of like a little thing where I didn't exactly know what I was doing when it came to converting a bus to an RV, or even really carpentry, any of that crap. That was kind of new to me. So the first setup was very interesting. I essentially just glued some pieces of wood to the stock, the factory bus wall, and put some insulation in there, and then just drilled things and built random crap. I didn't plan ahead though. I kind of just did things one by one. So the first thing I did was put down carpet, and then I built the walls over the carpet, and I put the furniture over the carpet, which doesn't really make sense. And I never put the wiring on the walls, but then I put the walls up, so I couldn't put the wiring back there after I put the walls up. And it just wasn't done very well. But it was still fun. Like, we took it to a couple events and stayed in it. Had a bed, had a bunk bed, and that was fun. But then I decided that I actually wanted to have like an electric system, and I wanted it to look nice, like an actual, like, the thing that happened is, like, I see pictures on Facebook of like, oh my gosh, this couple converted this cool bus into this amazing home. And I look at it, I'm like, mine is so bad compared to that. And I just got like, my setup is so terrible. So I was like, I have to fix this. So that's when we did the setup that you guys saw now. And that took a little bit longer. Like, it was a slow process. I did it all at once, but then all like the small details took a little bit. But now it's got solar panels and like an electrical system and a fridge and all the things that actually make it like a home.
That's awesome. What kind of gas mileage you get with that hog?
That's the only bad thing about it. I get like 8 miles a gallon.
8 miles.
Yeah.
Well, back in the early days of S3, like as soon as we bought it, that's why I asked you if the van came to you or if you went searching for it, because we had a van kind of come our way. Say a van, it was like yours, but it was like the full 2 doors in the front. It was like the big like airport shuttle bus or whatever. And we drove that thing all the way from Houma, Louisiana, back to Atlanta, and like mirrors were falling off while we were driving it. It was god awful. And then, but we put work into it, man. We had it like 2-tone painted. It was looking good. We put a wing on the back, and the boys at Nopi gave us like 12 of their #1 racing seats, so we were gonna do it like airplane style, And then I don't know, the economy crashed and gas went up, and I was like, I can't afford to even move this thing. Because it was like 6 miles a gallon or something atrocious.
I've never seen any pictures of
it. Oh yeah, it was dope. We put the stickers on it, like hammered drunk right before Nopi one year, and we were like, yeah, it looks great. And then the next day we're like, oh. Full of bubbles, but whatever. Sleazy is a style, and we were going for that. So.
Sleazy is a style.
That's the next T-shirt, folks. It'll be here in a month.
Yeah, this was done on purpose. But yeah, and then a strip club bought it.
That's perfect.
They didn't change a single thing. It still looks the same way.
Yeah, they were like, "This is great. This is perfect." So, it's had a life. Anyway, next subject.
Fill us in on the engine setup on the bus, because it's not just your regular 6.0.
Yeah, so when I was looking for buses, first of all, I had a very small budget. I had like $5,000 to spend. And I was looking at buses, and there's like the Duramax short bus, and then there's the 6.0 short bus. And obviously, I wanted the Duramax because the Duramax is so much better stock, but I just couldn't afford it. So we went to, there's actually a dealership around here that only sells old buses, which happened to work out perfectly. So we went there, and, even though I didn't want the 6.0, I had heard so many horror stories like 6-blow, trash engine. I was like, okay, if I get a low mileage one, it'll be fine, right? So we found a bus with 100,000 miles on it, which for a diesel I thought was like super low, and it was in my price range. So that's the one we ended up getting. And for the first like 2 years or year and a half, it did great. We put probably almost 10,000 miles on it. I bought it. It was actually like at like 93,000 miles when we bought it, and at 103,000 miles, we're driving home from the track. We had stopped to get B-dubs, and after B-dubs, I go back in, I start it up, and it starts misfiring.
B-dubs is Buffalo Wild Wings.
Yeah, Buffalo Wild Wings.
Okay, thank you. I thought you said like V-dubs, like V-dub, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry. Buffalo Wild Wings.
All right.
Anyway, after Buffalo Wild Wings, it started misfiring. But it was just for like a second. Like right when I started up, it was misfiring really badly, and then it kind of went away. So I didn't really think too much of it. Drove the next hour home, literally half a mile outside of my shop. So we got so lucky it happened here, but it was half a mile outside of my shop. Turn onto this road, and it just starts surging. Like I'm accelerating. It's like, whoa, like it's way down on power. It's doing something really weird. So me being my smart self, I decided I should floor it to hopefully clear it up. So I floored it, and it downshift, and it tried to go through the rev range, but it was not happy. But we made it back to the shop, made it back to my shop, and it's sitting there idling, and we unload the car from the trailer, and then we usually push the trailer back into its spot. But then the bus just shuts off. So I'm like, oh, that's weird. Try to turn it back on. It did not want to turn on. I was cranking. She wouldn't turn on. So we pushed it back into its spot, which it's really hard to push a 12,000-pound bus with two people into its parking spot. But we got it there. And so I thought it was just like an injector issue because it started misfiring and then it did the surging thing. So I was like, oh, great. It's an injector because that's a pretty common thing to go wrong on the 6.0s. So there's a thing where you can plug in a computer and you can do an injector test through the ECU. So the stock ECU is pretty advanced. You can do a bunch of tests. So, I got this program and whatever, and I clicked the button to run the scan and do the tests, and it's like, misfire on cylinder 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm like, what the heck? And all the injectors came back bad, and like, I just had no idea what was going on. I tried out everything I could, and I couldn't fix it. So I sent it off to, there's actually a diesel shop right next to my shop. Another very lucky thing. So we pushed it there. And it was there for a couple of days, and they call me, and they're like, yeah, there's shards of metal in your oil pan. It's got 0 oil pressure, and you essentially need a new engine. And I was like, ugh. So what happened is, one of the lifters had failed and sent needle bearings through the oil pump, through the camshaft, and through the main bearing on the crank. So literally it was completely toast.
Oh my God.
All of the most expensive pieces.
Yeah.
Oh
Well, it
my
was
God.
funny because it was like the bad news came in slowly by slowly. So like they called me the first day. They're like, it doesn't sound so good. It's not building oil pressure. Maybe it was just low in oil, or maybe the oil pickup tube fell off because that's supposedly a common thing on the van chassis. And they called me the next day. They're like, yeah, no, we overfilled it. Still didn't build oil pressure. We're going to drop the pan tomorrow and figure out what's up. They dropped the pan.
Okay,
Oh,
great.
shoot. There's metal in the pan. Okay, so then they pull the engine. And, okay, maybe we just have to put new lifters or new blank or blank. And then like, oh, the oil pump's scratched. Oh, the front cover's scratched. Oh, shoot, your camshaft is scratched, and your main bearing and your crank, and the only good thing was the block and the heads.
Oh my gosh.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Dang.
And to make matters worse, this is, relatively right after you finished the second iteration of the bus, right?
Yeah, it wasn't even fully finished yet.
So like at this point, Caleb, you have options, right? And you went through this on video, with your subscribers. You're like, on one hand, I could sell it and get another bus, but I've put all this effort into this, this new iteration of it. So I'm going to lose all of that. Or, I could stick with it, have to build this engine, sink all this money into this, this older chassis, but I'll have everything already done. So what was the decision making process like for that?
What was that? You kind of broke up there.
What was the decision making process for getting a new bus or rebuilding the old bus?
Yeah, so I had 3 options. As you said, I could rebuild the engine on this one, get a new short bus, which was a little bit bigger, because I kind of wanted to get a bigger bus because there were some things that we couldn't fit in the interior that I wanted to. And then the third option was to get a van, like a Sprinter van. Or
yes. Correction, you had 4 options. And the 4th would be like douse it in gasoline and then a flaming bow and arrow while it was rolling towards the lake.
Woolie's had that on his multiple choice list for a long time.
Yes. Option B. All right.
But so pretty much, I wanted to get a new bus, but then I was like, okay, then I have to buy a bus for one, then sink all the money into the interior. And then I won't get any money for selling the one I have because it doesn't have an engine. Like no one's gonna, maybe $1,000 or $2,000, not nearly what it was worth. And then also buying a new bus, like what's to say it's not going to have the exact same issue and blow its engine in 10,000 miles.
Yeah.
Like the thing about buses is that it's a school district. They don't take care of them very well. The drivers start them up and drive them straight. They don't warm them up or, all that kind of crap. So that's what kind of eliminated the new bus. And then the Sprinter van, I was like, okay, well, that would be cool. It's going to be reliable because it's brand new. It'll get much better gas mileage because it's sleeker and it's smaller and whatever. But it's a gas engine. I love diesels. I love the way they sound. Love the torque. So I really wanted a diesel. But this was a twin turbo V6. So it's the Ford one. It's an EcoBoost. And they do offer a diesel, but it's like an inline-5 and whatever. And also the Sprinter van doesn't have as big of a towing capacity. The bus is a dually. It's huge, so it can tow pretty much whatever. And then also the Sprinter van was like $25,000. So even though I could loan that out and I'd not have to spend it all at once, it's still a lot of money. So that's why I ended up going with the rebuild. And I figured if I rebuild the motor and, it makes like 1,000 foot-pounds of torque and it's an RV now, so if I need to sell it, I can hopefully sell it for much more than what I bought it for.
Right.
And
not what I sink into it.
It is actually registered as an RV now, right?
Yes, it's officially a legal RV. Although the process doing that was not necessarily the legal process, but it's there.
So what does it take to get? What does it take to get a school bus registered as an RV?
So what you're supposed to do, so I looked this up all online, all right? So I followed what the online people told me to do. So they said the legal way to do it is so there's 5 requirements. I don't remember them all, but I think it's, running water, 120 volt electrical system, separate refrigerator and separate heater, and then like a bed. I think there's like 5 requirements you have to meet. You have to meet 4 of the 5 requirements. So, and then after you meet 4 of the 5 requirements, you call the state. They send someone out. They inspect it. They approve it. Then you take that approval letter to a DMV, and they'll give you the proper title and whatever. But then there's a back door. The back door is you go to a currency exchange, which has the legality to assign these titles, but they don't know anything. So you just go up to them and tell them, hey, I have this bus. I want to register it as an RV. And they say, okay. And they do it. And that's what happened.
Oh, my God.
So instead of going through the year process of all these inspections and stuff, I just went up to the DMV and I was like, hey, I've got this bus, blah, 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 blah. And yeah, a week later, 2 weeks later, I get the title in the mail and it's all good.
That's
awesome.
Is that like a Illinois thing or is that a nation thing?
No, that's a nation thing, I guess. Because I looked up and like literally like this. There's this big web page of all these things you're supposed to do. And at the very bottom, they're like, We didn't do that. We just went to the DMV and asked for this. And
You could have said that first, guys.
yeah, right.
That's
But,
cool. All right,
yeah,
good.
it worked out.
Well, are you happy with where the bus is at now? Do you have any future plans with it?
Yeah, so it's a little rusty. I want to fix that. It's a little ugly. I want to fix that. But overall, the mechanical and the living space is where I want it, for sure. Yeah, you know. It will, I could sink another 20 grand into it easily and still not be satisfied. It's same thing with any. You can always put more stuff into it. But I'm happy with it.
In its current state, what's the furthest you've driven it?
Furthest I've driven it was what was it called? It's somewhere in like South Florida.
Okay,
sweet.
Crazy far, but made it there and back pretty safely.
Hell yeah.
I guess actually the first trip I've done with the new engine was the trip down to Atlanta, and that did it great. It was the most pleasant it's ever been on the highway. Before with the stock engine, it was like you're flooring it and you're barely going the speed limit, and it's miserable. But now you are using half throttle and you're going the speed limit. Same miles per gallon, same everything, but it's a little less miserable to drive.
That's
Well,
cool.
I guess that we'll take that as a win. So I guess what a lot of people are waiting for is updates on the Rally Miata. So you originally bought a cheaper Miata to make it a rally car, and from the very beginning you've had intentions on putting a Subaru motor and an all-wheel drive drivetrain in it. And a lot of people didn't think you would ever do it, but you proved them wrong, and you did. And so now, dude, now that thing is everywhere. I mean, I've seen it, on Donut Media. I've seen it on all kinds of Facebook pages and forums. Everybody's talking about this thing. What's that like? How's that been for your channel?
It's awesome. Yeah, it's like, so the way YouTube works is like you've got a year of regular numbers and stuff, and then you finally hit that big thing, and then it blows up, and you're like, yes, finally. And that same thing happened. Actually, remember, Hunter, when you took the pictures of the Rally Miata back when you were in Chicago, and I used that picture, and I did a 10-minute build overview video for that, and that blew up, and that did. But anyway, getting back to the current setup, yeah, it's really awesome seeing it everywhere. Makes me really happy that I finally, I had this idea for a couple of years, as you said, and when I first came up with the idea, I was going to have to pay a fabricator to do it and do all that kind of crap. So then once I went to a couple places and I got quotes, and I'm like, oh, wow, yikes, that's not going to happen. So then it kind of went on the back burner for a couple of years. And then eventually I got to the point where I was like, wait a second, why don't I just try doing it myself? And so I tried it, and I figured it out. And now that it's here, I'm really happy I was able to do it. And it's really awesome to see that people are enjoying it.
So what did it take to put a Subaru motor and drivetrain into a Miata?
The idea is pretty simple. What I did is I bought a WRX, which has everything I need. I pulled it all out. I made a jig off of the WRX chassis, which locates the stock subframe and suspension and transmount, all of that. And then I cut the front of the Miata off. I welded that jig into place where it would need to be. And then I built a front chassis to match that jig. And then all the stock WRX parts, without any modification, just bolted right back up. So the idea itself is really simple, but obviously
straightforward.
It required a lot of fabrication skill.
Yeah.
Tube bending and welding and all that kind of crap. But the idea was really simple. And I had that was the plan since the very beginning, was to do it that way. So I knew what I needed to do. I just had to figure out how to do it, kind of thing.
And by this time, you've acquired enough knowledge to do all of this comfortably. Was there anything in this project that you had to learn new?
Yeah, so I knew how to weld. I had that down, but I had never bent a tube ever. So I had literally bought a tube bender just for this, and I had to build an entire roll cage and a front chassis connected to the roll cage with this bender that I had never used. So that was a little bit of a learning curve. I wasted, $100 worth of metal trying to figure it out. But
yeah,
once you figure it out, it is pretty simple. You just got to kind of take your time. The thing that happens, and which really screwed me up a couple of times, was it's so repetitive. You put the tube in, you tighten it down, and you bend it, and you take it out, then you check it, you put it back in, and then eventually the orientation, if you kind of put the tube in wrong, then it kind of gets green. So if you're not constantly paying attention to how you put it in, that's really the most important part, is how you put the tube into the bender. Then you screw it up. So there was a couple times where for the first main hoop, so that's the main bar that kind of goes over your head in the roll cage, I put it in and I wasn't really paying attention, and then the hoop kind of went up and then went it was just the wrong direction, just because I put the tube in 180 degrees wrong.
I've been there before, man. I have a manual tube bender, and it was that same S12, and we built from this way, it was perfect. Yeah. And then you look at it, and it was just slightly. Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, it was such a pain to get to that point, and any one thing goes wrong, and you just got to chunk it or save it for scrap or whatever.
Yeah, there's no unbending a tube.
Dude, it's a pain in the butt. I got a question. When you when you take on some crazy idea like that, how are you strategic or are you impulsive? Do you just be like, I want to do it, I'm gonna do it. Where's the Miata? Let me get the Miata. Let me get the WRX. I'll figure it out. Or do you think everything through and go online and research and learn? Or do you just go, give me the cars and I'll learn. I'll figure it out.
It's a little bit of both, honestly. Yeah. I don't jump right into it, but I also don't necessarily plan it all out. I know, I figured out what I needed to know, or I figured out what I need to do. Before I started it, I knew I needed to have a WRX, need to pull it out, cut the chassis, tube off, do all that. But I didn't really plan out the schedule of how I was going to do everything, and I didn't really do much research on how to bend a tube before, and all that kind of crap. Didn't research how to unbolt the Subaru WRX drivetrain, and all that that kind of stuff. So I try to plan as much as I can. I write out all the things that I'm going to have to modify or buy to get the thing to this finished product. But that's about it.
That's cool. See, I don't do that. To my detriment, I totally just be like, I want it. I'm going to go on Facebook Marketplace and buy it, because that's the fun part. And then I end up with a WRX and a Miata, and I'm like, ugh.
And I end up with a BMW.
Actually, that just happened recently. Wooly has currently a $1,000 944 Porsche.
Well, I paid for a $1,000 944 Porsche. I wouldn't say I have it, but yeah, no, it's at a friend's that has 40 944s, and it's yeah, man, I want to do you probably don't know because it's local, but there's a race shop here that does 1.8 turbo 944s, full blown, $100,000 type builds. You know what I mean? There's nothing Audi or Volkswagen about it. There's, it's all been reworked and everything. But anyway, long story short, they're making a conversion now, kind of for the do-it-yourselfer, so you can buy the stuff to try and do it to your 944. And he was like, you want to do one? I was like, I'm in. And now I'm like, where am I going to do this exactly?
Yeah.
So whatever, we'll figure it out though. We'll figure it out. If worse comes to worse, I got a 944. That's all I got to say about that.
And he's said that that's the 7th time he's said that about a car he owns.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, 2 weeks ago, I was like, no more cars. I cannot get another car. And then Matt from Motorworks called and was like, hey, man, I was thinking I got some prototype pieces, and rather than just store them, I'm in, man. And he was like, well, call up Elliot and see if he's got a car. Elliot's a friend that parts out 944s. And I was like, okay, bye. Called him back. Okay, got one. He was like, all right. So anyway, yeah, don't do what I do, guys. Do what Caleb does. It's much wiser. So
I'm not even planning out as much as I should, really, but I guess a little bit of planning is better than none.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, hey, you don't want to know exactly where you're going. That takes.
Yeah, it's true actually.
Yeah.
So what's your idea from here? Like, so you finished the rally Miata, you've got it dynoed, it's running, it's, from what I know, reliable. I assume it's reliable.
Way to find
where
out.
do you go with it now?
So one of the things I really want to do is, like I said earlier, the drift truck. You know, I build these things kind of as fast as I can, and then there are, of course, things that need to be fixed and things that can be improved. So I want to spend this year, at least the beginning of the summer, really dialing in all the cars that I have. And then I've got a new project coming up soon. I have to finish my dad's Datsun. So, you know, I'm always constantly thinking. I have like a new idea pop into my head every day where I'm like, ooh, I should do this. And then like a week later, I'm like, nah, that's boring. Let's do this kind of thing. But
so when you're deciding what to do, I mean, how much, I know you don't just do it for YouTube, like that's probably pretty obvious, but like how much does that play into it? Is there ever stuff that you're like, man, I want to do that? Yeah, YouTube would hate that. Probably shouldn't do that.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. So one of the things I really like about my channel is I try to do things that aren't mainstream and a little different, like an all-wheel drive Miata or a truck for drifting instead of a 240 kind of thing.
Sure.
No, nothing wrong with 240s, Hunter. They're awesome.
I saw that tear come down.
But yeah, there are definitely sometimes where I come up with an idea. I come up with the idea, and then I decide, do I want to do that? Like, will I enjoy it? Then I decide, will that be successful?
Will anyone else enjoy it? Yeah.
Right, yeah. Will anyone else enjoy it?
Do you find that going weird, like with a truck instead of a 240, does that help? Or, you know what I mean? Like, I guess you really never know, but like there's 5 billion people with 240s.
Right.
So that would be good, except it's totally saturated. No one, cares anymore because it's all been done. So
yeah, it's that's a very good point. It's a little bit of both. Where if I do something weird, like it will get that niche audience, and then it will do well there. But if I do something mainstream, then there's a lot more people that like that build. But there's also a lot more people who have done that build, so it's harder to get your name out there.
Yeah.
I personally enjoy doing the weirder stuff, and it still seems to be almost as successful as the mainstream stuff, so that's why I do it. But yeah.
That's cool.
Yep.
Any like weird projects that you wish you would have tagged on, or are there any weird projects in the future you kind of like look at and think that's going to be neat in a couple of years?
Well, like that I want to do, or like that other people are doing
that you want to do.
I honestly, this is one of my dry spouts. I don't have that many ideas right now. I'll talk about what I'm going to do next though, because I might as well.
Yeah.
So I've got a 1989 Volvo 240 wagon.
Okay.
So it's one of those old Volvo wagons. It's awesome. I've been daily driving it for the last year, and it's
wait.
Old.
So is this the square one? Or
yeah, that's what about the sharp edge.
Or is it the roundier one?
I think they're all pretty square, but
yeah,
I'll let you.
Is it turbo?
No. So it's super slow. It's 2.3 4-cylinder, 4-speed automatic, or actually it might be a 5-speed. I'm not sure, but I knew I wanted to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a turbo LS into it and make it like a sleeper, like an unsuspecting car. So I had this idea for a while, and I was always kind of looking on Craigslist and stuff. And then this specific car popped up. It only had 70,000 miles, and it was for $1,000.
Dang.
And it was an auto, which I didn't want, but I'm going to pull the engine and trans out anyway, so I can fix that. And it had a little bit of rust on the hatch, but I knew since it only had 70,000 miles, the chassis would be fine. So I picked it up, and it was great timing because this was actually right when the WRX I had bought to do the swap for the Miata. I was daily driving that in the winter. And then I was going to have to tear that apart to put in the Miata, obviously, so I needed something to drive. And then this thing popped up, so I bought it. And then, yeah.
It's funny, when I was a kid, and it probably was like in 1991, I'm looking at your shirt, like my dad was trying to sell me for my first car on a Volvo wagon. He was like, yeah, we'll do a Volvo wagon. And he's a Porsche guy. And he was like, we'll put a 928 running gear and a 928 motor in the thing. And that way your insurance will be cheap because it's a Volvo wagon.
Yeah.
Yeah, we never did that.
Yeah.
But it's probably for the best. That would have ended in tears for sure.
The wagon's awesome. Like, even though it's the slowest thing I've ever owned and probably the rustiest thing, it's so reliable and it's comfy, and it's nice. Up to now, I've like daily driven my project cars, which is fun, but you underestimate how nice it is to have a comfortable, quiet car to drive on the reg.
I was gonna say, do you have anything new?
No, the newest
Do
car
you
I
have
have is.
interest in like building a new whatever the next new thing is that comes out?
I do. I just partially can't afford, or I don't want to spend that much money on a new car. And I like old things. You know, I definitely enjoy the old stuff.
Yeah,
That's funny. It's you enjoy the how quiet it is, or the comfort of that car. Gonna put an LS in it.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna ruin that. You're right.
Yeah,
but for the time being, I'm enjoying that.
Yeah.
It's funny because like I used to drive my mom's Toyota Corolla in 1998. I hated how quiet and slow it was. So then I bought all these race cars. I drove those for a couple of years, and now I'm like, yes, an old quiet car.
that's funny.
I've had the same
I'm the
97
same way.
Corolla since 2007.
What was that?
I said I've had the same 97 Corolla since 2007.
So that was the same generation I had.
Yeah.
I love it.
I know. Jesse's always like, I got a Corolla, and everybody's like, dope. And he's like, it's like a 98 or something. Like,
Yeah.
oh. But it is definitely one of a kind.
That is for sure. I think Jesse's favorite thing to do is, okay, so this Corolla, like, to a lot of people, it may be considered on the ricey side. I love it. We love it because it's weird. But Jesse's favorite thing to do whenever he comes to like a car event in it, take Import Alliance, for example. Somehow he has the greatest skill of sneaking it into showcase.
It becomes like the challenge of the weekend is like, we got to sneak this thing right out of there. But like, you know how like dog owners sometimes look like they're dogs or the other way around? Like that Corolla is Jesse, like in automotive form. It is, so it's perfectly Jesse.
The trick
Like,
is
it'll
getting
be-
getting it into showcase is fun, but it's cool when I have it like with the hood down and I put the chalk on the hood, and you've got all these like amazing cars next to me, but you've got like the crowd around my hood riding on all the chalk.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, my most vivid memory of that, the spotlight car for the last IA in Atlanta was the Skyline, all generations of the Skyline. Jesse snuck in, but the only spot that he could sneak in was at the end of the row of Skylines. He was like in between Skylines. So it was like all these beautiful R32s, R33s, and then just this 97 Corolla with a camo painted Yakima roof box on the top and a chalk painted hood that everybody was riding on, and nobody was paying any attention to all these beautiful Skylines. They were all
that's so
97
funny.
Corolla.
I wonder how the owners of the Skylines felt.
Oh
Probably
my gosh,
pissed.
they were probably mad. Don, okay, so Don is the founder of Import Alliance, and me and Jesse would just be in the booth, and Don would walk up to the booth, and he would just be like, "Guys," and we'd be like, "What, Don?" And he's like, he's like, "You know why I'm here."
I gotta go shoot. I'll be back.
Yeah, and then I'll be like, "Oh, 'cause you wanted one of these dope jet tags," and he just looks at us. He's like, "Move the Corolla."
The funny thing is, I do the same scheme with only at Import Alliance with the Fiesta, because he won't let it in showcase because it's a Ford, and so I always give him a bunch of hell because I'm like, "Well, come on! Like these cars, it's made in Mexico. It's like a Civic made in Ohio. So come on, it's an import. Like you see these things running all over Europe and the UK, and so we're always arguing semantics, and he's just like, just give me a freaking break, man. We got to draw the line somewhere. So I try and sneak that thing in there every time, and they try and chase me and find me.
That's hilarious.
It just turns into the game. Oh,
yeah. Well, all right, guys. Well, I think we're pushing like an hour now, so it's been fun. Thanks, Caleb, for joining us and hanging out for a little while. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
I got like one closing question. Like, God, this is lame, and I didn't plan it, but it's like the where do you see yourself in 10 years type of question. Like, what, you've got your own brand, you're totally your own media. So, what do you do? Like, you ever think about what's going to happen with YouTube, what other platforms? And it's funny because this is us, a print magazine, you know what I mean? But like, what happens if YouTube goes the way MySpace did, or there's the next thing and you got to freaking start from damn scratch, there's YouTube or something like that. And you got to start all over again. I'm just wondering, like, what do you do? I mean, the good thing is you got enough of a brand going to where you can shuffle over to wherever it's going to be.
Yeah. Well, so honestly, I obviously want to do YouTube as long as I can because I love it and I'm enjoying it. But nowadays, I really like the building aspect of stuff almost more than the making of videos. So, and YouTube definitely can at any minute go under, or just maybe my channel could start
change their rules or whatever. Yeah,
anything can happen for sure. It's definitely a very unreliable job, I guess is what you'd say. But at this point, if like YouTube went under, I think I would try to like start my own fabrication shop or something. I really love building stuff. So hopefully in 10 years, I'm still doing YouTube. If not, hopefully I have a shop. I know it'll be something in the automotive industry.
So yeah, you're kind of liking the fab side more than the quote media side of it or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I know I've learned enough to use my skills to, make money in other ways if I need to. So I'm not too worried, but I'll definitely still be in the automotive industry in 10 years. That's for sure.
Yeah. That's dope. All right. Sorry, Hunter, I was interrupting. I just saw you were closing out, and I wanted to ask that one random.
Oh, you're fine. Well, yeah, once again, thanks, Caleb. I saw you just passed 500,000 subscribers, so congratulations on half a million.
Ooh, give me some of them.
That's super
that clout.
Hopefully, we will be seeing the Rally Miata in the Import Alliance S3 booth. So you guys come out to Import Alliance, come hang out with Caleb and the S3 team. Should be a lot of fun. But other than that,
we're also getting it shot for the magazine.
True.
Rally Miata coming issue.
Yeah, I figure the majority of people listening probably have already seen it. But if you want to see some more photos of it, shot by CRS Photo, the one and only.
The good photos.
Yeah, man. We'll have that in there with some words. It'll be good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, that's exciting. If you haven't subscribed to S3, www.s3mag.com. Dude, you get 2-year subscription and a t-shirt for $20.
Hold up.
$20.
That's a steal.
This thing, that's the back right there.
Oh, I should have worn my S3 mag shirt.
Oh, you good, man. You good. But yeah, man.
All the goods.
Yeah.
All right. I guess we'll end it here. So we'll see you next time. Thanks a lot.
Dude, appreciate you, man.
Thank you.
Thanks, bud.